Hello, everybody. My name's Troy Swanson. I'm the Library Department Chair, and I'm joined today by Tommy Hensel, who's the Director of the Fine and Performing Arts Center here at Moraine Valley. Tommy, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for asking me. I'm happy to be here.
We're going to do a little preview and overview of the upcoming season because we're so excited that the FPAC is back and that we're having arts back in the Menker Theater. So that is fantastic. Could you maybe before we dive in, I know you've done so much work over the last year, being out there and keeping the discussion alive, at least. Can you talk a little bit about some of your work during the pandemic on behalf of the FPAC?
Sure. So obviously, like every theater in the world, essentially, at the beginning of March of 2020, we were shut down. And we weren't allowed to bring an audience back into our theater until August of this year. So we had about 18 months of no live performances with an audience in the theater. What that meant is that I had probably a third of a season left that got canceled, plus one entire full season that had already been booked that got canceled. So we had nothing on the books at that point because we couldn't perform. So we tried a number of different things. One of the things that we did was create a weekly Meet the Artist live interview show. So I interviewed artists who have performed on our stages in the past maybe 4 or 5 years, just to do a casual like this, sitting down and having a casual conversation, a kind of get to know you thing. We did that once a week starting in April of 2020 all the way through April of 2021. So we did a full year of those, and those are all on our YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I would encourage anyone watching this to take a few minutes. They're super fun. So they're worth the it's kind of unique instead of just watching the performance. It's kind of the behind the scenes with so many of the artists. Like you did really such a nice job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and part of the reason I wanted to do it was exactly that. I wanted people to be able to get to know who these people are as human beings, not just as someone on a stage. Starting in the fall of 2020, all of our academic music ensembles started to rehearse again because students were able to come in with certain kinds of social distancing and a lot of protocols for how band instruments can be played during the pandemic and how singers can sing. But all of them were rehearsing, and so as part of their curriculum every semester, they do performances. And if we couldn't have an audience, but we did live stream all of those academic music performances. And those, unfortunately, those are archived for the college, but we cannot rebroadcast them for copyright reasons. But we're continuing this semester with all of those ensembles being live streamed, but most of them are also going to have an audience that is able to come sit in the theater as well. So we're moving back to more performance again. During the pandemic also of last year, we, besides just the live streams, we did have one artist or ensemble who we managed to take their contract and rewrite it to make it a virtual contract instead of a live one. It was the Fifth House Ensemble from Chicago. It's a concert orchestra. And they actually did several workshops for our students that were live virtual workshops. And then they did a performance that was streamed live as well. So we had one artist who sort of stayed in the season.
Well, that's great. And is that virtual performance out there to be found, or were you able to save that?
No, but they actually have it saved on their website. So you can go to the Fifth House Ensemble website and see. It's called Rivers Empyrean. And you can watch that on the Fifth House website.
How great. It's like one of the lessons from the pandemic is recognizing the value of being together, but also recognizing what we can do remotely. I think there's so much that we've learned as a society, and it seems like you guys are kind of leading the way in some of that.
But it's true. I mean, in my industry, in the performing arts industry, everybody had to become very creative in the sense of either I got to find a way to be virtual or I don't work, or the art doesn't happen. We were in a world without art for a while, in a way, and I think people felt that. Even people who don't consider themselves to be all into the arts were feeling the loss of not being able to go to a concert, not being able to go to an art gallery, all of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and now we're back, and the upcoming season is here, which is what we're really here to talk about. And I got to say, like, you have one of those great jobs on our campus that I'm a little envious of. And I've always wanted to ask, what are the things that you think about when you build a season? You have this time, you have a space, and you're going to bring people in. And I know that there's some limitations, but also that you can go in a lot of different directions. So, what do you think about as you're building your season?
It's interesting because, some people who do what I do will have a very tight curatorial vision. Like, I'm going to do a season that's all about this theme or this thing, So, but we choose not to do that. Like, some people will also have like one style of performer that's they all jazz or all blues or whatever. So for us, because we're on a campus, I always try to think about as much diversity as possible, diversity in genre of performance, but also diversity in the performers themselves. I want people to be able to come into the theater and see themselves on stage. And we have such a diverse student and community population that in a way it's difficult, but in a way it's actually kind of fun, because that means I have access to so many potential performers and performances that we can put on the stage. So in general, we do 12 main stage performances. Those were the big shows, and 4 smaller shows in our smaller theater. And so those are easy because those are all local performers, and I've got a very clear vision for that. But the bigger season is always, I start from a blank slate. I go start looking at artists with no idea what I want. And as I see things that intrigue me, I start to say, okay, yes. And then what would go well with that? And what would be something that would be a different type of performance, so I'm not duplicating so many things. So it's kind of like a really interesting jigsaw puzzle. If I've got a great dance company that's a modern dance, I probably don't want a second one. I might bring in, a ballet company instead, or I might bring in world dance. You see what I mean? It's trying to keep it as diverse, but also looking at all the different audiences we have. Who comes to the theater, and I have to make sure that I program some things that are really purely for entertainment. Not necessarily tied to the curriculum or really deeply embedded into social justice issues, but things that are just for entertainment as well. So I'm looking at the diversity of performers and performances, but then also diversity of kind of the feeling or the vibe of the different shows.
Right. And I know this is a unique year, obviously, but during normal years where you're going year after year, I'm sure you also try to not do the same things each year, right? Some differences.
Yeah, I rarely will bring back the same performer twice in a row, except for certain performers that have multiple shows. Like there's a guy named Jim Witter, who's in our season again this year, that we've presented 10 times in my 14 years here. But every one of his shows is a different show. So people come to his show because they love him as a performer, but they're not seeing a rehash of anything they've seen before. They're seeing something completely different every time.
Yeah, how great. Well, maybe this is a good time to, what are the highlights? What are the things we should be looking for this season?
Well, I mentioned to you before we even started talking today that one of the weird things about this season is because we had all those shows cancel, I had to figure out a way to keep those contracts, because we couldn't just cancel the contracts. That's not how they're written. So if there's a way to reschedule, that's the first thing we have to talk about when a show gets canceled. So I took all of those contracts from 1 1/3 seasons and moved them into this season, and plus actually a couple into the fall of 2022. So even into the next season, we have a few things that we rescheduled. So what happened is that when I started to do that, the choice of dates and times was driven entirely by when they were available and when our space was available, not normally the way that I would put a season together. So it's a great season, but it's not put together in the way that I normally would. But having said that, I think we've got some great stuff. The first performance actually is coming up right after we do this broadcast, so I don't know if it's going to even be up before that, but it's a guy named Vitaly, who is an illusionist who was on Fool, Penn and Teller, so a couple of times. We have, unusually, I normally would do maybe 2 dance companies. I have 3 dance companies in the season this year, and they're all amazing, but my favorite is Cerqua Rivera Dance Theater, which is coming up in early October. They're a local dance company from Chicago that does really interesting work that intersects with social justice. So their work will engage in conversations about immigration, about the African diaspora, all sorts of really interesting things that tie into curriculum.
Yeah, wow, very cool.
Yeah, I think they're a great company, and they want people to think when they see their work. Not just sit back and say, "Oh, pretty dance." It is beautiful dance, but it's done with live music, and it's got a theme. It's got a theme. Well, one of the most exciting, of course, is Ben Vereen, who people will know from both his Broadway history and film, but also he's actually on a new TV show. It's not a new TV show, but he's a new recurring artist on this show called Be Positive, which has been on the air. I think it's a CBS show for the past couple of years, and he's going to be doing a show in October. Jim Witter, I mentioned, he's back. In November, we have a very exciting show that we're calling Songs for Syria. It's 3 Syrian artists that are vastly different. One is a classical violinist, one is a band that does kind of blues and funk, and the other is a spoken word artist, Omar Offendum, who we've had on campus before. But all of them are connected because they're all from Syria. And so their show is a celebration of music and culture, but really tied into the Syrian culture. Christmas, we have Christmas in Killarney, a big happy Irish Christmas celebration. Second City always comes back every year for us. That's in the spring. I would say in the spring semester, the things that I'm most excited about, we have 2 great dance companies, Giordano and Koresh Dance from Philadelphia. But we have the New York Gilbert and Sullivan players coming to do Pirates of Penzance, which is a great show.
Right.
The 2 shows that are really intersecting with curriculum and with relevant social topics. One of them is called Small Island, Big Song. It's a group of 9 indigenous artists from 9 different small islands in either the Pacific or the Indian Oceans, who have all come together to celebrate how all of their cultures have some similarities to them, but also all of them are cultures that are in danger of disappearing because of climate change, because of the islands. So it's an amazing show.
Which is a really great tie-in to just the library promotion. Our
Yeah.
one book, one college program this year is on climate change, and there's a lot of conversations that we're having related to that. So the communities at the front lines of climate change are the ones that are feeling it first, and that those island communities are right there. So what a great connection.
It was interesting when they were putting this, they were actually started out doing a documentary about all these islands. And in the documentary, they decided to sort of use music and dance as a way to draw people into the documentary. But what they discovered as they started going around to all these islands was that their music and their cultures and their clothing were all incredibly similar, even though they were separated by 5,000 miles of ocean. So there's this really kind of concept of that once they were all one people and spread out, and that culture has remained consistent across all of these very interesting and diverse cultures. So I think they're going to be on campus for 3 days to do workshops as well.
It's fantastic.
I think I'm most excited just because I'm friends with Azam Ali and Loga Torkian, but we have the Niyaz coming back to do the Fourth Light project again. They did it for us in the fall of 2017, and it's a stunning immersive multimedia show that celebrates Persian culture. So I think that's my most exciting show, I think, for the season.
That's great. Now, if for people who are listening, if they wanted to learn more and get the specific dates and get tickets, where would they go?
They can go to our website, which is morainevalley.edu/FPAC, which is Fine and Performing Arts Center. So morainevalley.edu/FPAC. And they will have all the information there.
That's great. And I will put a link to that in the description of this video on YouTube. And can you talk just for a second about where we are with the safety protocols for audience members? And I know this may change over time, but as of September of 2021, how are you guys approaching the season?
So, our safety protocols are driven by the college administration and the protocols for the campus. So as we all know who work in higher education, there was an executive order from the governor that all employees and students needed to be either vaccinated or tested on a regular basis. And that extends to volunteers, but it doesn't extend to visitors to campus, like people who go to the fitness and recreation center or the conference center or to our theater. So the protocols that the college has asked us to implement are keeping the mask policy. So anywhere on our campus, people have to wear masks when they're indoors. So we obviously have a mask policy. Like in the classroom, there's a 3-foot social distance in our classrooms right now. They've allowed me to do the same thing in the auditorium, which actually equates to 1 seat, which means if you come in and buy, let's say you buy 4 tickets because you and your family are all coming to a show together. When you purchase the tickets, our ticketing system will automatically block out all the seats around you, 1 seat around you. So each group is sitting together, but there's at least a 3-foot distance between that group and anybody else. So we've got some social distancing. And then beyond that, all visitors to campus are required to do a self-assessment health screening. There is a website that we've been sending out to our patrons called Cleared for Campus that makes it much easier, because if they do it in advance on the app, then they can just show us their phone when they come into the auditorium. Otherwise, we have paper copies of that for people who either don't have a smartphone or don't really want to use it or don't know how to use it. They can come in and fill out a quick assessment. It's a series of very short questions about their symptoms. And once they've done that, we can let them into the auditorium.
Well, and that's great. I mean, all of us are learning to live with the pandemic life, but I think it also gives some assurances that if you're buying tickets, everyone's not all jammed together. I know I've gone to, we have generally been going to outdoor events, but a couple indoor events, and you're kind of nervous. So I think this offers some, safety for people who are coming. So that's just great.
Yeah, I know most of the theaters in the Chicago area, like in the city itself, have implemented vaccine-proof requirements. It was a coalition of theaters that all got together and said, let's all do the same thing. And to be quite honest, I would prefer that for our theater. That's my personal choice. But of course, my protocols have to be driven by what the college has asked me to do. So, unless the college says, okay, you've got a choice, you can do this or this, we're going to keep doing this until they tell me otherwise.
All right. Well, Tommy, thank you so much for your time today. I don't know if there's any closing thoughts you wanted to send out to anyone viewing this.
No, just I let students know, particularly I've decided a couple of years ago that all tickets would be free for students to our main stage performances. So any student, not just Moraine Valley, but any student anywhere can see a show for free. Of course, they have to reserve the ticket, but the tickets are free for students. And this year we're offering a special discount to veterans and active military as well, which is a new discount level that we've created.
That's great. And thank you. I think the FPAC plays such an important role in the Southwest suburbs. I know that everyone in the surrounding communities recognizes your work and the work of your staff. And I think it's, you do so much in opening up eyes to all different kinds of art that we might not stumble upon if you weren't here. So thank you for that.
No, it's my pleasure. And I do want to give a shout out to the amazing staff at the FPAC. I have the hardest working team that you can imagine. And especially now with all of these new protocols, what the audience doesn't see is what we have to do backstage and in the dressing rooms and in the booth and all these support spaces, dealing with artists backstage and with our staff, all of the cleaning of microphones and, dealing with, airflow and just everything that that the audience shouldn't have to know about, that because what they want to do is come sit and enjoy a show. But there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes that's been doubly difficult right now because of all these new protocols.
Yeah, well, that's just fantastic. So send our best to them. And I'll just say to close, thank you, Tommy, for your time and for all your work. I'm excited for the upcoming season.
Thank you. And thanks for letting me join you today. I'm excited to be able to talk about the season.